Against? Carried. Thank you. Next item up is the Auckland Transport Update. We will kick this off in the very, very great hope that we might be able to deal with it in 40 minutes, or faster. So, Dean, welcome. Hope you've recovered, slightly from your, your poorliness. Murray and Scott alongside. So, welcome team, and we'll take your report as read, and so fire away.
Yeah, kia ora, and good morning. Yes, I have had a bit of the flu. The perils are going through international airports, I think. Largely over it, but if I have a little coughing session, I will leave, and I've got a great team. How does that sound? So it's our pleasure just today to give you some highlights on things that are happening and to give you an update on the ferry program. I'm sure there'll be good questions on all of it. Can I, in my introduction, just touch on a few things that have come up this morning? First of all, I want to acknowledge the death of that person on a bus in the Halsey Street depot. Police are investigating. When we have more information, of course, we'll share that with you, but there's no suspicious circumstances. It appears they found their way onto the bus and passed away, sadly. There's been some good discussion this morning around the bus through one of our presenters, and likewise on emissions reduction. We remain committed to both, ensuring that we have great public transport and that we're reducing emissions. Excuse me. As a matter of fact, on emissions, we are on track, and we will continue to do so. We've got a completely electrified rail network. Well, my voice is going, isn't it? I am emotional, yes. On track with buses. Ferries are challenging with reduction in funding. Embedded emissions, you'll hear more about that. And the big area we've got through TERP is how we handle indirect emission reduction through the wider transport fleet. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to, we should flick through. Just some of the highlights. You'll see with PayWave, we've continued to hit some amazing statistics. Bikes and buses trials, 417 kilometres of road repaired. Can I just note with the recent rain that is definitely showing up the impact of decades of underinvestment. You'll see more potholes. We've got our crews working 24/7 to try and keep on top of this. Auckland has topography that likes to respond to wet weather in the form of slumping or potholing when it comes to roads. We work very hard to try and minimise that. Rail upgrades continue, as you'll note, with Kiwi Rail doing some great work over those holiday and long weekends. Good progress being made. There was an agreement around bringing strategic planning for the longer term transport infrastructure into the council team. We're pleased with where that's landed. That brings spatial planning and long-term infrastructure investment planning together. And I'm really proud of the fact that Auckland Transport has been nominated for a group of national awards across different parts of our business, and we're recognised by our peers as being in that last 3 or 4 across many of the things that we do. We've also been nominated for some international awards too, and so thank you for your support. Your support comes in the form of investment and direction, and it turns up in peer recognition. We were challenged by this committee previously. Actually, can I also just touch on, there was two other things I just wanted to acknowledge quickly before getting to safeties. Very pleased with the out-of-home media contract that was recently awarded. You'll have got that notice. Pleased that we've resolved with the community and businesses how the K Road precinct will work once CRL goes live, and I've already touched on wet weather. So there's some really good things happening, along with all the challenges that come with running a transport business. Right, safety of the network. Last time we met, we were challenged to bring safety forward in the conversation, so that is what we're attempting to do here. We'll talk about road safety, but you'll see us continue to grow the conversation about safety more generally across the transport network. And so today we're going to shine a little bit of a light on rail safety. Some of this information on rail is preliminary, and we still need to get, we're measuring things slightly different with Kiwi Rail, so we need to bring that together. But we have a shared interest on what happens across the rail networks. Now, I'm going to ask Teresa Burnett if we've got detailed questions. Teresa is available to respond. But you can see here across our the road safety network that this is to May. This year, 599 people have either been killed or seriously injured, which is slightly ahead of what we had targeted and how we're investing to reduce impact on road safety. So we're disappointed with that, but we remain focused just the same. You can see year-on-year fatalities, and that we continue to have a concern that 51% of those that are either killed or injured are outside the motor vehicle. You can see some interesting statistics here around public transport and rail safety. I think the thing that I want to call out in rail safety is we are working a lot more closely with Kiwi Rail, particularly on what happens around level crossings, what happens on the rail corridor, with people crossing it where it's perhaps not, well, it's uncontrolled. And that is an area that we are also focused on. The thing that you don't have in this summary is relates to ferry activities, and that is something that we're working up. But look, between Stacey and Teresa, if you have any questions, you can come back to me on that, and we've got the slide up there as a prompt. Murray's now going to talk to the capital program, and then the reduction in embodied carbon, and then Scott will talk to Murray outcomes.
Sure. Thanks, Dean. So last financial year saw us deliver the largest ever capital program that Auckland Transport has, and some significant milestones achieved. You would have seen photos throughout the year, and there's a few more photos here of some of the things that have been going on with the ferry build program, and a couple of vessels now on the water being tested, new electric vessels, and you'll hear more about that later. The Great North Road corridor improvements are well underway, and many safety improvements across the network, improvements to cycling, and some of the big projects like Eastern Busways are trucking along well. Maybe go to the next slide. You're just looking ahead to the current financial year that we're in. Dean mentioned it, great result around the Karangahape Happy precinct design, a very collaborative work there to land on a design that we can move forward with, and very much looking forward to landing out the enabling works around the CRL with streetscape works, the rail rolling stock and so on. A few pictures in front of you. Storm recovery will be coming to an end this financial year with a couple of the big projects at Manukau Heads and Millflat Road Bridge well underway now, and also a whole bunch of rail safety improvements with the level crossings. And on the level crossings program, we have awarded the pedestrian bridge contract and also the road bridge design contract for the Takanini cluster of crossings, so that will be a significant part of the work going ahead. Should we jump ahead a couple and I can cover off carbon? This is quite a good one. Social outcomes. In terms of what we're looking at in our procurement, and Scott will cover a bit more on the Māori procurement side, but it's a good example from the Point Chev to Westmere of looking at more the social procurement outcomes on that particular contract, with hitting targets around diverse suppliers, Māori and Pacifica suppliers, and some good examples there. But maybe skip on to the next one, which is low carbon. Significant part of what we're looking at is reducing the volume of carbon in our capital projects, so what we call embodied carbon. And one of the key areas that we're focusing on is concrete. Concrete is a carbon-intensive material, but we're working with the supply chain to bring in low-carbon concrete, and this has been successful, and we're looking towards a goal of 25% less embodied carbon emissions in the concrete that we use on our network. And this is through a number of things, replacing Portland cement with a slag product, which is being imported through the concrete suppliers, and it actually results in a higher quality concrete product as well, which we're currently using on the Eastern Busways program. It's used in the concrete pavements that we're building and also footpaths. So it's a great piece of work, and it's across the industry and also in partnership with other big infrastructure owners, Kāinga Ora and NZTA and so on. So I'll maybe leave it there.
Kia ora tātou. So I'll take, as the Chair said, the slides as read, but just cover off a couple of critical points. In the FY25, our approximate spend, as you can see through those percentages, particularly in our capital program, are over the SOI target. But when we look across all of the business, it equates to approximately 3% of our total organisation spend. So the number is at nearly 60 million in the year to May, and we are confident of that being higher through the June month as well too. One of the challenges, and I won't spend too much time on this part of the slide, but the challenge that we've talked about previously is the need for us to focus on the operational spend. And we are working closely with Haukura on that, and I just want to acknowledge Haukura in particular as I flick to the next slide around the contribution to the Māori economy. So we've met recently with Haukura Dean and members of our Māori Outcomes team and procurement team met with Haukura, and I think one of the valuable parts that came out of that was the ability for Auckland Transport to talk through some of the opportunities in the operational spend, and in particular as we start going into the next couple of future years, when our capital budget starts to come off a bit and the operational spend goes up, we are going to need to work closely with Māori businesses to lift the capacity and the capabilities in those areas. So want to acknowledge Haukura in support of that. While I don't obviously speak for Haukura, the hui that we've had so far have been a good opportunity to talk through those challenges. We've spoken through the SOI target and just want to acknowledge that the feedback from Haukura to us around the SOI. I think that we've been able to create an understanding at least of the challenge at the moment, and so we're working with Haukura further on that. One of the points, or 2 points to finish on, one is that because our PT spend equates for nearly half of our overall organisation spend, it's difficult for our Māori organisations to get into that area, but we are working with Haukura on that. And finally, we're looking at the methodology of how we come up with the target and working with our council colleagues to do that. We have a slightly different methodology than council does, and that means that our spend looks specifically at Māori outcomes, whereas council's is a bit wider than that. So we're just looking at how we can align better with council's number.
Happy to take questions at this stage of this part of the presentation, noting that the ferry update will follow.
Cool, thank you. First question, Desley.
Thanks, team. My question is around the 417 kilometres of roads that were repaired or resurfaced. This sounds a great number. Could you give me, because I just can't remember, what was the target for the year? Because your year is that the annual target or is it just to a point? It sounds great. I want to sell the good news. I just want to know how does it compare for what you've done before, and the annual, is it an annual target or just year to date?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the target was 400 kilometres, so we've exceeded the target. That does only represent, I think it's around 6.5% of the network. We're around 6.5%. We're looking to build that year on year. So that is a great accomplishment for this year, But in the next year, we're looking to do even more.
It's fantastic. And my second question is, and I apologise, not 100% of the presentation, but in the interest of trying to help you sell good news, I just want to congratulate you, Stacey, on following up my email to Dean around the driver who, in an absolute storm of weather, helped every passenger off the bus with their bags and stuff into a covered shelter. Not all buses can fit back end to end on a covered shelter. This driver went over and above. And I just, to my colleagues, say Auckland Transport does have a way of rewarding bus drivers who go over and above. And if you find someone who does that, get in touch with Stacey, because you did a good job around that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And just need a mover and seconder. So someone like to move? Thanks, Chris, and seconder Desley. Okay, Ken.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. First, you talked about low carbon concrete. You used the term bring it in, and then you talked about an extender or some sort of additive that goes to the concrete, which improves the carbon measurement and improves the concrete, so you said. When you measure these, I saw you smile, I didn't mean so you said as in, I'm not disbelieving that. I am questioning, however, the embedded carbons. The importation of it, the shipping of it, etc., is that included in your carbon measure? Where does the carbon measure start and finish? At the wharf?
No, so I don't know to what level of detail, and would be very happy to take you on a site visit down to Wholesome at the wharf so you find out all the details. But the short version is, yes, the transport's included. All cement in New Zealand is imported, mostly from Japan. The carbon savings is through using a waste product from the steel industry rather than what traditional Portland cement, which is calcium carbonate or lime that's fired in a kiln. The carbon savings comes because we're using a waste product from the steel industry rather than creating a new product for the Portland cement.
I would really like, please, the full report on how that's all done. I've seen some of the reports out of water care and stuff, and I'm interested to see where the mathematics goes. Thank you. Last question is, and I've heard this mentioned here before, and it's a political sort of question, but you talked about overall road deaths, etc. But I did sit in front of telly the other night and saw an ad about road deaths, and it happened to mention, yet again, that 1/3 of road fatalities has a connected drug connection, So in other words, it was caused by drugs. So, I get concerned that we as council are funding a whole bunch of these road speed mitigation things to bring it to zero, when we'll never get it to zero without a factor which is completely out of our control. Do you consider this when you do you consider the way your outcomes of zero are mitigated by other events in the way you decide how Auckland Transport's going to spend money? You get what I mean? There's a cost thing here that I don't think we can pay back on.
We could spend a lot of time on this, so I won't go there. But can I simply say we're not funded to get it to zero. Our desire is to reduce and minimise the impact, road safety impact, through a whole variety of means. We do recognise there are some things that we can directly influence, and we do that through speed, we do that through traffic calming measures, there's a whole range of education. We work with NZTA around the promotion on the TV that you see, where it talks about the impact on the road toll of drug and alcohol use. So we're doing all of these things, either influencing or indirectly influencing or directly influencing, to help bring that target down. But we're not funded to bring it to zero.
Sorry, so thank you. Just then, all I'm trying to do from my side for the people is make sure that we spend the money that Auckland Transport spends as productively as possible, so I can take it we're on the same track and we are trying to achieve the same thing across the board. In other words,
Well, our overall commitment is to challenge ourselves and ensure that every dollar is spent very wisely And sometimes we don't get that right, like any organisation, council, Wuriki, whomever. But we're always challenging ourselves to be very, very efficient and get as much value from every dollar spent. And the dollar spent around safety in terms of health and social impact, economic impact is a good dollar spent, but we still need to be very wise about it, which is why we take quite an integrated approach and be as careful as we can. So, look, the commitment is absolutely there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Shane?
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of our DSI stats, just wondering if you could define actually what makes an injury a serious injury.
I've got Teresa on my shoulder who will confirm, but for it to be recorded as a DSI, it's required police or ambulance attendance.
Thank you so much. And I'm just wondering if we could get a graph that shows change over time on DSI figures. Sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. It'd be cool to see that in the current climate. Could we get that circulated?
Yeah, sure. This information is all available on our website, and we will make sure that you're across all the DSI stats. We've got it broken down by age, demographic, local board, type of accident. So all that information is available. You can query it in whichever way you want.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Right, Honey.
I'm going to borrow your choice one there, Ken. Thanks for the update. It's great to see that you're working towards mighty outcome. And there is a challenge you identified, which was with the public transport engagement. Question I've got is, we know there'll be complexities in actually trying to engage with Māori, with mana whenua, with Māori business stakeholders. What are the opportunities that AT is exploring to actually collaborate that engagement, whether it be joint venture deliveries, whether it be investment partners? What type of approach are you taking or considering to do?
So I think that the first or couple of points, one is that recently with the Auckland or the Regional Transport Committee had an invite out all to mana whenua and iwi to meet at the last meeting, which was a couple of months ago. And so we had iwi members there at the Regional Transport Committee, and we put this challenge as well to them, which gave them, I guess, some of the clarity and the understanding. And now we've had the opportunity to go back and work with them on where some of those opportunity areas are. I think what when we talk about operational spend, some of that was being missed, and that was our fault when we actually sat down with them and said, this could be in professional services, it could be in delivery services. We started to go through areas where they might be able to support us. We had feedback from iwi saying, well, we've got people who are really skilled in the IT sector. How can they get involved in actually some of the IT services at AT? So these are some of the areas that we've been discussing. I think with Haukura as well too, it's just trying, again, it's our procurement team in particular are doing a good job from procurement, but we don't know what we don't know. And so the relationships with our iwi, with Haukura, with Mātāwaka is about actually understanding who's out there and what services could align to AT, and then how we can actually procure those services. So we're engaging more, we're much more closely aligned, Honey, and I think the commitment definitely is there to try and keep increasing it and overcome the challenge. We see it as a challenge, not as a barrier to stop it. So we are definitely committed to overcoming where we can.
Well, it's good to hear that you're progressing down that space. I know it's not going to happen overnight, and it's how we work and keep working through it. Just another comment to Mr. Chair, especially in relation to that low carbon concrete. That's an interesting space. especially with emission reduction coming through. And I know that mana whenua, part of them was to reduce emissions in one form or another, so that the marine life, and we all know quite well that it goes out to the waterways. So I'm just wanting to note that's a good way to consider how to move forward in construction spaces with their emission reduction. Kia ora.
Thank you. Daniel, online.
Good afternoon. Thank you to Auckland Transport. My questions relate to renewals and also the contract in Takanini. 417, I can see why you want to dial that up, because that's less than we would want to be going. There's about 6,500 kilometres of roads in the Auckland region. When you say wanting to move that number up, how challenging would it be to get to between 600 and 650 kilometres per year as part of that program?
Yeah, I'd have to do the maths to find out exactly where we're heading, but we're hoping to move up to 8% of the road network, the sealed road network, resealed. We're measuring that on a square metre basis, because a kilometre measure doesn't take into account where you have 2 lanes or 1 lane. So, yeah, we're committed to lifting that spend and that coverage. And I can come back to you with exactly what the kilometre number will be in due course.
Okay, well, 8% would take us up to about 520 kilometres a year. Are you looking to do that within your existing budget, or how will that be achieved? Is that part of a resequencing, or that's quite it's quite ambitious. So how do you do that?
Yeah, so this is planned growth, and it's included in the current 3-year budget. There's been strong commitment from central government to invest in renewals in the roading space, and there's been strong commitment also from this council to match that funding. So for the next 3 years, we've got planned lift. I think it's 6.57, 7.5%, and then we hope to go to 8% in the due course. So that's baked into the 10-year plan. Obviously, we've only got 3 years of that funded. So that's planned.
Okay, and my other question there, that's resurfacing. What about road rehabilitation? Do you think you can get any movement on that, those full road reconstructions?
Yeah, so we're looking to improve full rehabilitations as well. We're not being funded from central government to the same level that NZTA is funding itself for rehabilitations. But we're looking to lift that, I think, close to 1%. We're currently, well, last year we were down at 0.1%. So a very small amount of the network was having a full rehabilitation, and we're looking to lift that up to 1% in due course.
Okay, thank you for your response to that, and I'd be very grateful for any more information you can provide me in slower time. Really happy to hear of the awarding of the contract for the station overpasses in Takanini. Have you finalised the design for that?
So the design for the pedestrian bridges is finalised and will be moving through to construction. For the road bridges, the contract's been awarded for the design, so that will evolve in due course.
Okay, and when are you going to announce that?
Sorry, announce the design, or?
Yeah, the design contract for the bridge, for the vertical bridges.
Well, so as far as I'm aware, that's in the public realm.
Great.
And so we can share that name. I'd probably just need to double check with my team that before I mention names, but as far as I'm aware, it's publicly available.
Okay, that's good. And my final question is, the design, when do you anticipate the design will inform so that you can start to go to a QS for the vehicular bridges themselves. I am very grateful to the work that AT is doing in relation to property acquisition. That's really hard. Concurrent to that, obviously, needing to take design through to construction, and there's a lot of QS and consenting work to come in relation to that. So how long would the design work take to inform that next stage?
I think what might be easiest is to come back to you with, or I can even circulate a memo amongst this forum of the details of that contract, the timeframes and so on, so that everybody's on the same page. And I don't have the exact details at the top of my head now, but we can easily share that with you.
All right, thank you to the officers, and thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Daniel. Lotu?
Kia ora, thanks, Chair. My question is about the new program, the new Tap and Go or More Ways to Pay program, and I'm curious to see the difference it's made, and especially to our communities, like in my ward, that traditionally, haven't accessed public transport to the same degree as other parts of the city. Have you seen a significant uptake there, or are you able to comment on that? Kia ora.
Yeah, great question, thank you. Look, I think it's pretty even across the board. We have seen obviously more trends, particularly in weekends. There's a higher use of contactless in the weekends and on ferry services and on Waiheke itself. In terms of that, 60% of our customers actually use a concession. And so for children or Super Gold users or Community Connect customers, they all need that concession. So they will still use the AT Hot card. And so we're still seeing a steady increase, but one thing that sort of needs to come back around is keep on telling people that we have this available, because people forget and or don't know. That's definitely one gap we've seen in terms of people's knowledge about it, but it's definitely has taken down a barrier in terms of using public transport. And, on that spontaneous decision to try public transport, it's taken away that barrier, which is absolutely what we needed.
Kia ora, thank you, and I want to commend your comms team as well, because you did a really good job of getting that whole messaging out. I mean, it was coming across everyone's Facebook feeds and TikToks, and I often hear my nieces and nephews talking about it, Tap and Go, and how you can just use your contactless, pay cards. That's awesome. Kia ora.
Thanks, Lotu. Richard?
Kia ora, thanks. Just a quick brief comment on Karanga Ahape. Thank you so much to Jane and Murray, the team, everyone, to get to a much, much better place and to have local board, business association, everyone on board. So that's great. The questions I have, so it's great, and I've had great feedback. The questions I have on bus reliability during, transport reliability in the main corridors like Oniwa. NZTA have a good program where there's an incident, they get police and towies and all sorts there really quickly, but we don't seem to have the same treatment for, say, Oniwa this week. It took almost 2 hours to clear a crash, and it's probably 30,000, 40,000 people affected. Are we thinking of ways to have that similar approach, if we can see it on the cameras, etc., to try and clear those massive corridors, because they can have the same or close as effect as, say, the Harbour Bridge, the same number of people?
So we definitely have access to the same eyes on the network as NZTA. They do have the advantage on the state highway network of shoulder lanes that they can run emergency vehicles down. But you can imagine Oniwa Road, and I know that you can, as can I, when that's at peak, there is no shoulder lane to run down, and so it's very, very difficult to get in. But notwithstanding that, I think that's a good challenge. What else can we do? And I'd like to take that back to the team. I had the same question about cars that are parked where it's a clear way and shouldn't be there, and sometimes it feels it takes too long for us to get those cleared and removed as well. And so that is a good challenge. How do we ensure that we align with our commitment that the roads are for movement, not for parking in, and that we minimise the disruption impact on that movement. So thank you.
Yeah, that would be good, a better system, because sometimes I just text John Strawbridge, which I know is the incorrect way to get a vehicle cleared, but it does get it cleared.
So do I, but still, yes, it's the incorrect way.
That is the incorrect way. The other question is, had a bit of, great that in a month we have some fantastic increases to bus services, but for some reason, a lot of comments have been around bus driver behaviour incidents. Is there anything on your radar that actually shows there is an overwhelming issue with that, or is it just because they are large and there's so many of them that people seem to notice that there are more crashes or something? I know there's a lot of good driver training, but there's just this weird kind of vibe out there at the moment that buses are causing a lot of incidents. I don't know if that's correct, or we've done any work on that, or...
Yeah, that's an awesome feedback actually, and thank you for that. We're always looking at the data to see what's coming through, to see how we can work with operators and putting new measures in place in terms of on-road incident reportings and things like that, so we can actually measure them in terms of kilometres delivered. So we actually get a baseline in terms of driving behaviour and how that relates to training. So that's a constant work in progress. But are we seeing any sort of spike? I think... No, I haven't seen any spike in the data. That doesn't mean it's not happening though. So, the key thing is about having that reported so we understand what's being seen, and that customer feedback is really important for that. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Julie.
Kia ora, thanks. So I've got a few questions, Chair. First up, the safety stuff. So if we could just go to that slide, that would be great. So really good to see this, and glad that you've picked up the challenge about putting it higher up the agenda, literally and metaphorically. Can I just ask that Safety Always logo, that seems new to me. Is that a new thing?
No, it's not, and Stacey's confirmed that it's not either. 22.
Okay. Great. Oh, well, it's good. I encourage you to be using that more. The crash data, can we just, that question that Councillor Henderson asked about the definition of a serious injury, obviously it's top of mind for me at the moment. My understanding was that a serious injury was only one where there was permanent or long-term mobility impacts. So, for example, the injury I'm at home with, I should have a full recovery from, so it won't be covered in the SIs. So it took me quite a bit of Googling to try and work out what an SI actually was. So can we just have some confirmation on that? Not necessarily right now, but yeah, I guess I'm just thinking about, we had to start this meeting 15 minutes late this morning because I can't physically be there, for example. You need one more person for quorum, right, Chair? That would have normally been me. So, I'm quite keen that we are telling the story more about what the actual impacts of these accidents are. So do you have a response there? Sorry, because I can't see you. I can only see Andy in the slides. I don't know if you're nodding or if Teresa's come to the table. Sorry.
Really, hi. So yeah, there are a couple of different definitions. Typically, it's if you go to hospital and are hospitalised maybe overnight. But what I would do is, because the CAS data is Wakakatahi's, I'll get a really firm definition from there and I can circulate that for you. Because there are multiple.
That would be great. Thanks.
Ones as well.
Yeah, because I did see some that it was, as Dean said, but then when I sort of dug further, it seemed that it did seem to be. But let's get some clarity on that, because I think the other question that I have in this space, I'd like to see further, you've said this one is more focused on the rail safety, and I think that's good and useful. I would love to see further, if you're going to pick this up on a monthly basis and maybe rotate around some of those key issues, that would be great. And I'd like to understand better what the impact of accidents are on congestion on the network as well. We often talk about other things and their impact on congestion, but I'd like to better understand the incidence of accidents. That would capture the DSIs, but it would also capture other accidents as well, and how they contribute to congestion. So is that something that potentially we could get some data on for a future deep dive?
Yeah, that absolutely is. So we've got a piece of work underway at the minute, which is looking at the cost of crashes in Auckland, and factored into that is productivity as well. So we'll be able to come back to you with more information.
Right, thank you. And then two completely different questions from each other and from safety. One is around the CRL readiness, and I know we had a presentation, I think it was last month, about CRL readiness and acknowledging it's in that transfer space where you guys are sort of coming in around that timetabling and what it's actually going to look like in operation. So it may be too early for this question, so tell me if it is. What I want to know is how Auckland Transport is involved in making sure that the different stakeholders who have a strong interest in getting the timetabling right, how they're being involved. Is AT involved in that process yet, or is that being led by a different agency?
Yeah, good question. Look, we're leading that process because we've got to make it work with the wider network and integrate it into the transport network. So we're definitely leading that process. There's a lot of factors and things that need to be understood between the rail partners. So from an operator perspective versus a Kiwi Rail perspective, and how that runs in correlation to freight movements, etc. So that's all being worked through. It's quite progressed, but there's still work to be done there to get it refined.
Oh, and so with supplementary to that, what's the level of involvement? Is there a relationship for AT with the workers who are going to be staffing these timetables? Are the union, are they talking directly to AT? Are they coming through one of the employers? How is that working? Because I'm hearing some concerns that the timetabling may not be practical from a worker's perspective.
Absolutely, the unions are being involved, or delegates are being involved at this point with Auckland One Rail. So in terms of that, obviously goes through quite an in-depth process, both from a timetable perspective, then through to a rostering perspective. And that's where it highlights in terms of some of those things that don't work from a workforce management perspective that need to be worked through. So they're in that process now in terms of understanding what they are, and then before it sort of gets finalised, there's of course conversations in terms of with representative unions to understand that better and what impacts, and then refinements from there. So before it is finalised, all that is washed through very, very thoroughly to make sure that when we get to that stage where we're going to push a button and go, and then it's got to go through a roster change process, which is a minimum sort of 6 weeks, that there's no impediment to do so. Yeah. Great.
Okay, that's really good to hear. My final question, Chair, is something else again, which is the embodied carbon stuff around the concrete. That's really exciting. Some years ago, I was aware of a project that a student at Unitec, I think, did, where they identified driveways as a potential site that we could, and obviously we don't build or control driveways, but my question is really for higher permeability, lower carbon, all of that kind of stuff. You know, a lot of concrete in the city is used for driveways, right? So what I'm curious about is the relationship between the low carbon stuff and permeability, because obviously we have a broader interest in that, but also how use of it by AT, by those big agencies that you're talking about, might be able to filter out into the market as well, in terms of people being able to make those choices, you know, when they're redoing their driveway or building a new home or whatever, outside of the big players. So that might be something to come back on, but yeah, interested in whether there's been some thinking about how that might drive higher uptake in the broader market outside of those big players.
Yeah, sure, thanks for the question. The practice note that Auckland Transport's prepared is available for anyone else in the market to use. And we see ourselves as a industry leader because we're a significant buyer of concrete in the market. So this will require a change right throughout the supply chain in terms of the people laying concrete and so on. But we believe that we can lead that change together with some of the other big players. So our hope very much is that this gets adopted at the smaller level for driveways and so on. So yeah, absolutely. There's great opportunity.
Oh, and does the practice note cover off the permeability aspect? Because I'd be keen to, I'm happy to just read it, but is that something that's included, or is that just something that's sort of by the, not part of the low carbon aspect?
Permeability is a different concept.
Yes.
It's to do with the fines content in the concrete and holes in it. That's not covered with this current practice note, but permeable concrete is absolutely a material that we can use in appropriate places, yes.
Great. Thanks very much, Chair. That's me.
Thank you. No other questions other than me, Murray, on that concrete issue, and I know it's wholesome doing it. Did they engage with New Zealand Steel, who are a significant producer and supplier of slag products and would reduce the carbon even more, and also allowed backloading because there are other products that they use that come into the port?
So just to be clear, the practice note is not favouring any particular supply chain, and our understanding is that all the major cement suppliers in Auckland can meet the requirements of this practice note. They're definitely looking at opportunities for supply chain sourcing within New Zealand, but for the volumes required, offshore sourcing is definitely will be part of the supply chain.
Okay, thank you. No other questions, so thank you, team. Good work with 45 minutes. It's a bit of a record, I reckon, so you can step back before we tempt fate. Okay, so any comments or debate on this? None, excellent. We'll move right along. It's been moved, it's been seconded. Will those in favour say aye? Aye. And against? Carried. Thank you. Wonderful work. 45 minutes for an Auckland Transport update. That is quite exceptional. So we're going to take a break now. We will take 30 minutes. So we'll be back here 1:05 and be ready to roll into the ferry update. Thank you.